Hey, before we get into the episode, I just want to tell you about my free astrology newsletter called the Starzologer. It comes out every Sunday. It's of a lot of interest for astrologers. I explore cosmic currents moving through the ever-changing skies. Most weeks I explore what's coming up in the week and also share some astrology sticky bits and throw in some ideas about buzzing around. You also get stretched with my Extend Yourself sections. So this newsletter is for aspiring astrologers or anyone who's trying to up their astrological knowledge. It's totally free and you can sign up at starzology.com/newsletter. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I am your host, Alison Price, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hello, Alison. It's great to be here again.
So nice to have you once more. So in this episode, we're continuing our US election for 2024. So this is actually going to be our fourth episode, and we're going to be talking about the election day.
Yeah.
So previously, if you haven't listened, we had the US independence chart. We then did the Republican nominating person, and then we did the Democratic nominated person. So there are 4 actual episodes in our mini-series surrounding this election.
Yeah. And we are now going to be talking about the actual U.S. election date, which is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024.
Yeah.
Super Tuesday, I believe they call it.
Do they? Yeah.
Because it's always the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday, something like that.
So was it November?
Yeah, it's always in November. It's always the Scorpio.
Interesting how it's always a Scorpio, hey?
Yeah.
And so in this particular chart, we've got the sun is actually then at 13 Scorpio, good solidly in Scorpio.
Yep.
But that is the only planet in Scorpio this year.
Yeah.
And we've got the moon is just snuck into Capricorn, which is fair enough. And Mercury and Venus then are in Sagittarius.
Yeah.
There does appear to be a grand trine between Mercury, Mars, and Neptune. So, which is in a fire sign. So clearly there's going to be a lot of activity, a lot of energy going on that day.
Yeah.
And of course, as I understand it, with most elections such as this one, like the bars are closed and the businesses are generally closed, and everybody is allowed to go and vote. They can take time off work to do so, or not.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Well, the bars are closed for sure. No?
Honestly, I don't think anything closes. I mean,
really?
I grew up in the U.S. I only moved here in the mid-90s. And, from what I recall, nothing is closed.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty much you fend for yourself if you want to vote.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a capitalist country in every sense. No, they are not closing for anything.
Oh, my goodness.
I guess you might get like an hour off to go and vote. I don't know. It could have changed a little.
But let's be quite clear. You and I are not voting in this election. We don't have any say.
In Canada.
We're just with the peanut gallery, aren't we?
Yes, exactly. We are talking about this because it is huge news. I mean,
absolutely.
It's the biggest news.
Yeah, it's the biggest economy, let's face it.
Yeah, and we are in Canada, attached at the seam. You know, it's the largest peacetime border, whatever, between nations in the world, and they're our big brother, I guess you would say, as a nation. And
wow, it's like living next to a sleeping, elephant, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's that big.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, as I understand it, people who are outside the US are already able to vote with their postal votes and whatnot. I don't really have all the details, but the main voting day will actually be November the 5th, which is a Tuesday, which is a great day.
Yeah.
And as I said, there's a nice fire grand trine if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, Mercury, Mars, and Neptune.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so Neptune's still in actually Pisces, but the other two are in Mercury's in Sagittarius, Mars is in Leo. And that's definitely going on. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. We also have a T-square between Venus's opposition Jupiter, and they are both squaring Neptune. So Neptune is quite a focus in this particular election.
I am both not surprised and
blown away.
Yeah. I mean, just given the way the last few elections have gone and the whole too close to call thing. And
yes.
I mean, starting in the election of 2000 between Gore and Bush, where it had to be eventually decided by the Supreme Court weeks later. And and all of the controversy that went on, and the popular vote versus the electoral college, and
it's a tricky system.
There have been a few elections where it was pretty clear. Obviously, Obama's election, that was very clear that they didn't have to do a recount or anything like that. But most of the elections that have happened since 2000 have been very contentious, very close,
yes,
and very controversial,
yes,
and a lot of Neptunian energy. So
yes,
to see Neptune so prominently in this chart, part of a grand trine and a T-square, is both troubling and completely unsurprising.
Yeah. So clearly, of our two candidates, I mean, everyone's known Trump for years and years. We all know who he is. Of course, clearly, he was president previously. Mm-hmm. And then we have the new and upcoming Kamala.
Harris, yeah,
she's coming in, and it's I got to say it's a woman, and I've always wanted to say I'll vote for the woman because, enough with this. But there you go. Not that I have a vote, but they both have strong. Not only personalities, but
there's
strong supporters.
This is exactly the thing. It is not about the candidates anymore. Even it's almost entirely. I think that the controversy is really about the strength of their followers and their supporters, and whoever you feel should win, whoever ends up actually winning, the other side is going to be incredibly incensed and irate, and bereft, and feel like the election was stolen. Yes. I mean, I'm not even making a prediction here. This is what I know from watching YouTube and absorbing all the information that has been swirling around. And this is clearly, people are saying, and this is, people always say this, but this time they mean it, that this is the most important election ever, in the U.S. They've been saying this for the last couple of months, ever since Biden dropped out, and they had this sort of quasi-primary where there really weren't any other candidates, and it was just, okay, now it's Kamala.
Kind of been unexpected, right?
Yeah.
An unknown quantity.
Yeah.
Coming forward,
For sure, but an unknown quantity, but at the same time, business as usual quantity.
Yes.
As she is the running mate of Biden, who has been in power for the last 4 years.
Yeah. I can't even believe we ran to another election, right?
Yeah.
So astrologically, it's quite interesting because our friend Pluto is right at the tail end of Capricorn at 29:47.
Yeah.
So it's 3 minutes from moving into Aquarius. And
and that would be arc minutes, not minutes.
Yeah.
To be clear.
Yeah.
For the non-astrologers out there. It's not that too close to call.
No, but actually on election day, Pluto is still in Capricorn.
Yeah.
Which is a sign that represents the government following the rules, the old order of doing things, tried and true methods.
Yeah.
We've always done it this way, so let's continue doing it this way. And that's that sign.
Yeah.
And then between the actual election and the inauguration, which is in January sometime, Pluto will actually later on in November move into Aquarius.
Yeah, January 20th, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that the inauguration? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So that'll be another chart to look at in the future.
Yes. Well, maybe our listeners can let us know if they'd like us to talk about that inauguration date as well. So do drop us a line if you'd be interested in that.
For sure.
But the point being that there's this massive energy shift from the actual election where the vote occurs to the inauguration. So between these two times, Pluto is changing signs for the last time. Now it's been in and out of Aquarius for the last 18 months.
Yeah, 3.
But this is the final push through into Aquarius.
Yeah, and where it will stay until 2046.
Yeah. So where Capricorn is the tried and true and traditional, Aquarius is the modern, the new, the trendy, the fashionable, for the people. For the underdog and the disenfranchised and the immigrants, yes, indeed, the aliens and whatnot. So, but it's bringing in a new order of energy, a new Plutonic order.
Yeah.
So I do suspect that even regardless of what occurs on election day, there is going to be, I wouldn't say changes and shifts and what have you, but there's definitely going to be something that occurs as Pluto makes that final shift.
Yeah.
And we may find that when we get to the inauguration, something else is actually occurring to what we thought from the election.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually very interesting that Pluto's in this position, this final gasp.
Indeed.
Of Capricorn. If this is not the final kick of the can in this sign, then I don't know what is, because this is a big election. It does affect the global economies.
Yeah.
Markets go up and down like yo-yos when these things occur, and we're all, no matter where you live, you do actually get affected by this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one thing I wanted to bring up, and this is not exactly about the election, but it is about 2025 and the sort of
the year,
the climate and politics very specifically. And this is something that was mentioned in the book. I don't even know how you'd pronounce this, but Uranus USA.
Yeah.
Astrology looks at the first planet and nation of the New World by Nick Dagan Best. This is a book that was published in 2013.
Fabulous book.
A fabulous book. Incredibly colorful, interesting, full of bizarre illustrations.
I think he called it a graphic astrology book.
Yeah, it's almost like a graphic novel.
He came to Vancouver. I wasn't sure, were you there back in 2013? Yeah.
I was in Vancouver, but I did not go to see him. I'm not sure where I was, but super interesting book. And he talks about the history of Uranus in Gemini, which so Uranus takes 84 years to go around the zodiac, and every 84 years, obviously, Uranus will be in Gemini. It will be going into Gemini in 2025 for the first time since the 1940s.
Right.
And if you think...
First time in our lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. So if you go, in the 1940s, what is that? That was World War II.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was approximately 1941 to 1948-ish. Yeah, so 7 years. Spent 7 years in each sign. 1941... World War II. And
look at the social change that came out of that.
Right, exactly. A massive amount
Women came out of the kitchen.
Oh, totally. Into like Rosie the Riveter,
farms.
the workforce. Yeah, and then we had, at least in the Western countries, Europe was fairly devastated by the bombings and the Holocaust and all of everything, but out of the ashes, that's not the greatest metaphor. But anyway, out of the ashes of World War II came an immense, period of prosperity for most of the nations that we look back on as like kind of almost a golden age. There were a lot of things.
The American dream.
The American dream. The 50s, exactly. The GI Bill, all the housing that was for the returning veterans. And the Mad Men era came out of that.
That's right. Yes.
All the pinstripe suits and whatnot, and the advertising and the consumerism. Oh my God! But yeah, this period of Uranus and Gemini coincided with this absolutely horrific World War, and 84 years earlier, it coincided with the 1860s, which of course was the Civil War in the U.S.
Right.
And before that...
Between the North and the South, right?
Yeah, exactly. 84 years before that, 85 years-ish, was the Revolutionary War in the U.S., the War of Independence, where they fought against Britain. So, yeah, we're not predicting anything, but it's interesting. And
but from all of these wars came social change that improved.
Oh, yeah. Yes, 100%.
It's such painful to have to go through it. And clearly we're going to have to face a lot of things in 2025.
Yeah.
But in the end,
there's a period of a golden age. And also this is...
the golden age. I love the sound of that, Arwynne.
Right? Yeah. The book that I was reading recently, and it's not an astrology book, but I will mention it anyway. It's called The Fourth Turning is Here, and it's by Nick Howe, and it's in the series of the generations, the book of about the generations. It's if you're not familiar with the work of Strauss and Howe, they wrote a bunch of books, like 3 or 4 before this one. This is his most recent, which came out last year. And he basically predicts, if not if not a second civil war, then at least a period of incredible conflict and crisis, from which, and he says we're in this crisis now. It basically began in 2008 with the financial crisis.
Right.
There was a pre-crisis moment, which was 2001, the attacks on the Pentagon and 9/11, basically.
Okay.
And the World Trade Center, all of that stuff, and the Iraq War, 2003. So that was kind of the pre-crisis. And then 2008, the crisis kind of began in earnest. And these crises last for about like 20 years at most. So
yes.
we are kind of in the thick of it. And he predicts that at the end of that, there comes this golden age of renewal and patriotism and social equality. In not to say that the 50s was a time of social equality, but if you think about the tax rate was incredibly high. There were all these social programs, and there was all this building that was done. This, the highways and the massive infrastructure, the malls, the shopping,
the malls of America. Yeah,
my God, yeah. So there's always this period that comes out of the crisis period, as far as the generational theory goes.
Because you said it was a 20-year cycle, right?
Yeah, this
which
really
is
corresponds
a generation.
With astrology. Yeah. It does, yeah, and. Like with Pluto, so I think of Pluto as the big generational planet,
yes.
but Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are all generational. And if you kind of map those onto the Strauss-Howe generations, which I've done in a talk in the past.
Fantastic.
Thank you. But yeah, it actually maps quite well. And of course, Pluto's orbit is very elliptical. It goes from, I think, 14 years at the smallest, and then to almost 30 at the largest. So that spends the most time in Taurus and the least time in Scorpio. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're about in the middle of that. Yeah. So it's
going to be 20 years in Aquarius,
literally 20 years, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's a generation, but it averages out to 20 years. Mm-hmm. So that's our big generational planet. But Uranus does correspond with unexpected events and cataclysmic events. Mm-hmm. You may recall when Uranus went into, I think it was Aries, that was literally the very day that the tsunami hit Japan and the Fukushima meltdown and all of that. And
there was an absolute shift in the Earth's crust that
day. The very day. Yeah. Which is crazy.
It is.
Yeah, Uranus moving signs is not to be trifled with. No. But not to be doom and gloom. We don't know what will happen. We're not predicting, God forbid, a civil war, but I mean, we wouldn't be the only ones if we did say that. We're by far, And
I think too, with these elections, you always have to look at the new, young, fresh-faced people who are coming up to vote for the first time. Yeah. So these are all Gen Zs, right? I know. Right?
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it that way.
So you've got this, but they have a different approach to things. They're frequently still living with their parents at 30, and they want more from their jobs. They're looking for a better lifestyle.
Yeah, I wouldn't say any of them are 30 yet, but yes, they're in their 20s.
But
they're also exactly still very dependent, and it's not even just that they might be living with their families. It's that this generation didn't get to play outside.
Exactly.
They are the most parented.
And they're online. Generation. They've been online since they were 7, right? Which is so different. Whereas back in the 70s, people, you could buy a house, have 2 cars, and take a vacation. Yeah. Because the economy was so different. Yeah. Whereas now in this generation, they call them the renting generation, where they can't get to the point of being able to purchase properties and so on. Yeah. So this is the upsurge of these tiny homes and whatnot.
Right. And roommates.
Yes, the endless. Yeah. So you've got that different, and as Uranus moves then into Gemini, we will see more. There'll be more clarity about how this is going to unfold.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe that Uranus moving into Cancer eventually will be that beginning of that new, whatever. Golden age.
The new golden age. The new golden
something
age.
Nesting, I don't know.
Yeah, so whereabouts are we in this cycle with our friend Nick Howe? Are we in that? Are we coming towards, or are we still in the...
We are in the crisis.
We're still in the crisis.
Sort of approaching the peak of the crisis.
Okay.
I mean, these cycles too, like he's very the way he talks about it, he says it's not a physical science.
Yes.
It's a social science.
Yes.
And he's very careful to say, like, this is not like watching the movements of the planets. And he's not trying to distance himself from astrology, which is neat. I actually appreciate that about him. I've read the entire book, and I've got a couple.
We'll put a link to it.
Yeah, for sure. But he doesn't actually, go out of his way to say, oh, this isn't astrology, which is I appreciate, because he could do that. And it isn't astrology, but at the same time, it is very complementary to astrology. The fact that he's talking about cycles at all, and the fact that then he goes on all these shows and he talks to finance people and business people and historians, and they're saying, yeah, these are cycles. These cycles, and they're somewhat predictable. You can't say, oh, it'll happen on this date, as far as they're concerned. But what he's saying is that it's not like a mathematical cycle. It's more like cycles in nature, in biology, where the Fibonacci sequence, or they're not exact.
And you said it's a 20-year-ish cycle, which is with the Saturn, Uranus, Jupiter conjunction. That's a 20-year cycle.
Well, yeah, exactly. For sure. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is the thing, that rather than being able to say that with this election, this is going to happen and that's going to happen, it's easier for us to anticipate social change that improves the lives of everybody.
Right. And the change of energies, these things we can absolutely predict and say that we're going to see crises. We're entering a period of extreme volatility, of conflict. We're already in that. Yes. It's obvious to everybody. But we can say that it's not going to clear up after the election. No, it definitely not. It's going to definitely get worse, whoever wins. That's pretty much indisputable.
Yes.
But from that, we will enter a period where things will begin to kind of, after the crisis.
After Uranus has moved into Gemini, there's I think there'll be more clarity on that too.
Yeah.
Because, Uranus is pretty much towards the very end of Taurus at the moment.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It will be...
25. So it's still got a way to go, but definitely next year it's moving into Gemini.
Yeah, and we'll do an ingress episode for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. All the ingresses. We're going to talk about them.
There's no doubt about it, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Election Day and how it will impact the candidates.
Yes.
So as we want to talk about Kamala Harris and Trump, and let's start with Kamala Harris because, as you say, ladies first, but also alphabetically. And so we'll just start with Kamala.
So we're looking at the bi-wheel here. We've got Kamala's chart on the inside, and then the Election Day chart on the outside.
Right. So November 5th, Tuesday, and we're casting it for the.
Well, it's on her birth. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's on the actual day. Not much is happening.
Yeah.
Well, I think, we want to look at this 10th house for her 10th house, what's going on, because this is her public office. Mm-hmm. And she does have Pisces on the 10th house there. And but she does have a couple of planets passing through, one of which is Saturn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which does really establish yourself in your career, which is really what's happened in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
So Saturn is going through there, and it will give you what you're worthy of. You don't get more with Saturn. You don't get the total bonus. You just get what you're worth. So there's that there. She also has the transiting Neptune who's going through there as well. Mind you, that's been there for a while. So that's clearly been bubbling under before we even knew who she was. Yeah. She obviously had her career in the California and that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the North Node is there.
Is Saturn conjuncting her Chiron?
It is. So
interesting.
Yes. So so there may be feelings of, should I be in this space? Am I right to be at this table? Like Michelle Obama used to say, yes, I have the right to be at this table. But with it being Chiron, it does show your weakness. So maybe there is some internal fears, but we'll never know. Yeah. But Saturn is there, so technically it could be. It's an indication that this is her time on the center stage, on the world stage, and she is playing her role up there.
Yeah. And I mean, clearly, if you're up for the position of the
president. You've done your groundwork to get there. This
Clearly,
didn't just happen, right?
Yeah.
She's been working towards it for years and years, and Saturn has now moved into her 10th house, and she will clearly be on the center stage for a while whilst this planet is up there.
Yeah. Are there any other major aspects we want to point out here?
Well, I don't see any at this point because we really want to pay attention to that midheaven in that 10th house, because really, is she going to be, that's your highest honors.
Yeah.
So that tends to be, and it's politics. Your 10th house is your politics, the government, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So it is conjoined the Chiron. So it's a good position to put, because she does have planets there. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be running.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Which, this is why you and I aren't running. You know. So that's kind of an interesting chart. That just generally, off the top of my head, that's there.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Mm-hmm. So what do we see when we look at Trump's chart?
So when we look at Trump's chart, so again we've got Trump's chart on the inner wheel, and then we've got the actual election chart on the outer wheel. So it's the day of the election, and here straight away we can see that he's got Uranus conjoined the midheaven. So this is. And not only that, he's got Jupiter in the 10th house, which is a good thing, which he didn't have last time he was in office.
Interesting.
So, but this Uranus is likely to suddenly, out of nowhere, out of the blue, there's a situation unfolding, a public situation unfolding. So both of these candidates have two strong planets going through their 10th houses. It's not like one's got the obvious winner here. They do have a different approach to things. Even though Uranus is actually in Taurus, his midheaven is Taurus, but he's got that wide 10th house. And something, it has to be unexpected. Suddenly, without warning, something's going to be cropping up there. So,
It's fascinating that for him it's Uranus and for her it's Saturn.
I know, and yet I would have thought it would be the other way around.
But she's a lawyer, and he's this,
He's a businessman.
He's a businessman, but he's also the great iconoclast, the disturber, the disruptor.
The disruptor.
Yeah,
and,
Uranus.
That you either love him or you hate him, whereas Kamala, we're not even perhaps sure how we feel because we don't really know her.
Right. Yeah, 100%.
Whereas Trump's been going for, 30-odd years and we all know every move he's ever made. So it's a very different thing.
Movies, TV.
The whole thing. And, the whole thing is there. But this year, this election, he's got Uranus conjoined the midheaven. So that is a very powerful position for something totally unexpected, something unique, something new to come forward. So, Okay, so Arwynne and I, we've been through a couple of ways that you can look into political astrology. We definitely don't want to predict either way on this vote because it's just not judicious to do so. And of all things, there's lots of things I'm quite happy to give my opinion on, but this is not one of them. But if you take your actual candidates and you put their charts in the middle and put the bi-wheel of the event, you can then see these are transits to their chart, so you can see what they're likely to be going through. And it is an election, it is public office, it is midheaven stuff. So both of them have strong planets up there. They've both got two planets, which is, a good thing. And certainly our listeners, I invite you can let us know what you think.
Yes.
So,
From an astrological perspective.
Yes, only from an astrological perspective, please, because, some elections are more important than others, and this is definitely one of them. And why not? Everybody knows what's going on. Everyone's heard of both of these people. It's not like we're talking about people's charts we don't know.
We're not talking about Canadian politics.
Exactly. Because nobody knows. So if you would like to email, you can email us at starzology@gmail.com. And you can certainly text us with any of your comments regarding what we've spoken about today. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can click the link on the very top link, and send us text with your questions or ideas about what we're speaking about here today. And if you found value in this episode, please do share it with anybody who would be interested. And certainly do visit Arwynne's blog. She has a specific, she's specifically talking about this gentleman, Nick Howe, and we can link straight into there. But Arwynne's also talking about other things, right?
I'm talking about other books. I'm talking about social issues, art, and movies and TV and
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lots of things.
And we can link straight through to your article there on Nick Howe and his fourth turnings.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting because you kind of did a bit of a review on that, which was great.
Yeah, I found that fascinating. Super fascinating book. Yeah.
So certainly do please visit our blog, which is starzology.com, and we do have some astrological freebies available for you, and that will be at starzology.com/freebies. And of course, I need to remind you to make sure you're getting our newsletter. It comes out every Sunday. It's Astrological. We only talk about astrology, and you're welcome to sign up for that at starzology.com/newsletter.
Yeah.
So, Arwynne, thank you so much for coming along today.
Thank you very much for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and the fact that you've lived in the States for many years.
Yeah.
I mean, I never have, so you've got a slightly more insight onto these things than I do. But I do appreciate you being here today.
Thank you very much, and thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks so much, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the two main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer or someone who's learning astrology or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there. Or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.